What's up, everyone? I hope you're having an awesome month so far. Since my last deep dive was all about tearing apart a notoriously terrible actor, I figured it was only right to pivot and honor a cinematic genius who left us way too soon, Philip Seymour Hoffman. This absolute powerhouse built one of the most remarkably diverse resumes of his entire generation. He flawlessly bounced from side characters to leading men, crushing comedies, heavy dramas, and massive blockbusters. The guy was a total chameleon whose acting range was absolutely limitless. He could completely vanish into niche roles, totally steal the spotlight in a massive cast, or effortlessly carry heavy psychological plot. I still remember watching Mission Impossible 3 for the first time and being blown away by how he instantly hijacked the movie. Delivering bone-chilling lines about tracking down a woman just to hurt her, he completely stole the show. His terrifying body language and ice-cold delivery created a deeply unsettling vibe that no other bad guy in the entire franchise has ever matched. Let's take a chronological walk through some highlights that showcase his wild versatility. From awkward dialogue about getting a girlfriend to heavy drama, he mastered it all. In Magnolia, the plot unravels across one crazy day in Los Angeles, connecting broken people dealing with deep regrets, isolation, and massive emotional baggage. Amidst the screaming matches, Hoffman shines as Phil Palmer, a gentle hospice nurse tending to a terminally ill TV producer. He stays in the background, yet serves as the story's crucial emotional anchor. He handles the medication, sorts out the boring details, and tries helping Earl reconnect with his estranged kid. The script constantly tosses him into intense crises without making him the flashy center of attention. Phil's purpose is deeply grounded and completely compassionate. Hoffman crafts the character entirely through restraint, keeping his body guarded, movements perfectly calculated, and totally avoiding any cheap theatrical stunts. As Earl drifts between confusing hazes, Phil truly listens. He fluffs the pillows, double-checks the meds, and keeps his voice at a rock-solid, soothing whisper. This performance completely ditches cheap, tear-jerking cliches, showing pure empathy through mundane daily chores. You really see Hoffman's masterful grip when chaos hits, always entering the room totally cool. But the stress definitely builds. When he calls Earl's son, that calm facade cracks. You hear his voice tighten as pure desperation bleeds right through his professional nurse persona. The transition is incredibly subtle but totally spot on. He projects raw anxiety while staying completely grounded. It's an amazing scene, especially since Phil is never painted as a flawless saint. You catch quick glimpses of sheer exhaustion and annoyance, especially when messy medical bureaucracy ruins Earl's final moments. Hoffman barely lets these cracks show before locking back into his calm groove. Amidst crazy dramatic rants, he stays totally grounded. By the end, Phil doesn't experience some magical transformation. Earl simply passes away, and his exhausting caregiving job is officially over. He commands respect without being a bully, shows massive heart without showing off, and totally nails that quiet loneliness. While the movie cranks up the drama, Hoffman captivates us through disciplined restraint. Transitioning to a tragic widower, Love Liza centers on Wilson Joel, a web designer whose wife tragically takes her own life, leaving him a sealed suicide note he's terrified to read. The plot revolves around Wilson's complete failure to handle his massive grief. Instead of reading his late wife's final words, he spirals into a weird coping mechanism, getting hopelessly addicted to huffing remote control airplane fuel. The storyline is intentionally stripped down. The movie quietly watches as Wilson slowly and methodically deletes himself from society, kicking things off by getting totally fired. His mother-in-law desperately tries to keep him grounded, but his chaotic marriage remains a mystery even in death. Everything peaks when Wilson opens the note, discovering she just wanted him happy. Reacting in the darkest way possible, he immediately torches the letter and wanders into the road, where the lingering gasoline fumes suddenly ignite his clothes. He casually strolls out of his flaming house, practically naked, wandering the pavement like setting himself on fire was normal. Hoffman portrays Wilson as a guy fading into a ghost, just giving up completely. You don't see any fight left in him, just a totally slumped over surrender. Hoffman completely lets himself go physically, turning into a dull shell. His eyes go totally vacant while his shoulders cave in. It's such an inward-facing performance that you watch him disconnect from reality scene by scene, and Hoffman completely refuses to beg for pity. Wilson just floats through a completely numb existence, only stopping to get high. Hoffman perfectly captures the dark truth that severe trauma doesn't always turn people into better human beings. Sometimes grief strips our humanity away. Wilson doesn't magically turn into a wise philosopher. He just shrinks. The acting brilliantly maps out this downward spiral, showing him pulling further away every single scene. When talking to his mother-in-law, you feel this incredibly messy mix of thankfulness, bitter anger, love, and isolation. Hoffman balances these conflicting emotions perfectly without neatly resolving them. The third act unfolds with a creepy, deadpan calmness. When Wilson finally unfolds that suicide note, Hoffman's expression stays totally blank. He silently skims it, then tosses it into the fire. Setting himself on fire honestly feels like the only logical ending for a dude who's been slowly vanishing from day one. That roaring blaze just proves his mental breakdown was already totally finished. Hoffman's performance paints grief as a brutal eraser, the kind of crushing sadness that scoops out your soul until you're totally empty inside. It's a haunting reality check dispensed on his own terms. Jumping into Capote, the film covers the late 1950s and early 1960s, tracking the author as he obsesses over a murdered Kansas farming family and the two drifters busted for it. He packs his bags for Kansas to research In Cold Blood, the legendary true crime book that skyrockets his career while totally wrecking his mental health forever. The plot hinges on Capote getting deeply and emotionally wrapped up with convicted killer Perry Smith, a guy he quickly realizes is completely on his same twisted wavelength. The storyline constantly flips between his high society New York lifestyle and his tense trips out to Kansas, where he grills witnesses and inmates to piece his masterpiece together. As the writing wraps up, his obsession with Perry evolves into a really dark kind of empathy. Once Perry gets executed, Capote is left holding his brilliant novel completely alone in the dark. The movie brilliantly portrays massive success and total self-destruction as a package deal. You instantly recognize Hoffman's Capote through those dramatic quirks, that squeaky voice, and perfectly staged gestures. He sketches out a heartbreaking picture of a ridiculously lonely guy. That flashy public mask wasn't an act. It was the only personality he had left, always performing even in an empty room. He manipulates and builds his brand, but there's a huge crack in that fake exterior. When interviewing Perry, Hoffman lets you see a spark of real, unscripted human bonding. The dramatic flair doesn't magically vanish, but it takes a back seat. Capote looks at Perry and sees a mirror image of his own broken trauma and his painful life as a social outcast. Hoffman lets all that hidden vulnerability bubble up during these intimate chats. It's absolutely mind-blowing how much raw emotion he packs into one take, completely refusing to judge the guy's messed up choices. Hoffman lays out the raw truth for us. Those closing shots highlight this painful contradiction with brutal honesty. Capote got his legendary book published, but traded away absolutely everything else in the process. Hoffman plays the final act with an incredibly draining sense of defeat. The portrayal brutally admits some folks are just wired to put on a show, and realizing that sad truth fixes absolutely nothing. Over by the restroom, things get incredibly tense. We hear characters brutally tearing each other down, spitting venomous lines about having the world in your hands but lacking the guts to actually do anything. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is this wild, time-jumping thriller dropping crazy clues. It follows two desperate brothers, a slick finance guy and a divorced dad who scheme up the ultimate flawless heist, robbing their own parents' jewelry shop. On the surface, Andy looks successful, yet he secretly drowns in crushing debt and blackmail from a hidden affair. He is totally broke and desperate. Things go south during a heist when their mum takes a fatal bullet, prompting the movie to jump backward to uncover a web of lies, family trauma, and pure spinelessness. You will not find heroes here, just dudes destroyed by their toxic ambition and need for cash. Hoffman plays him as a ticking time bomb, barely hiding behind a slick suit. The guy built his whole life around projecting a flawless image of absolute perfection and winning. You see the stress bubbling up through his stiff body language and tiny slip-ups. It is pure nervous energy, showing up in a tight jaw during fibs and a panicked squint whenever terror strikes. Every step is completely calculated, terrified that natural moves might blow his cover. Right from that raw first sequence, the actor puts it all out there physically, rejecting any typical Hollywood gloss. The real magic of this performance is how much emotion gets conveyed without speaking a single word. When he finally grasps the total disaster he started realizing his mom caught a bullet from his scheme, the guy just shatters internally. Yet the genius move here is you never feel sorry for him. The actor highlights a deeply self-centered core, showing a dude obsessed with his own bank account problems who happily throws family under the bus. This messy emotional clash is beautifully left unresolved. He is pitiful and completely guilty, and the performance forces us to sit with that uncomfortable truth. This flick easily ranks as a top-tier suspense masterpiece in my book. Time to hit the road, I suppose. Moving on to another gem, a story tracking a brother and sister trying to figure out how to manage their dad as his memory slowly slips away. We bounce between the East Coast, where the brother hides from reality as a drama teacher, and the sunny Southwest, where his sister grinds away as a stage writer. The two team up to tackle brutal choices about healthcare, nursing homes, and watching their old man fade out. It plays out like a perfect mix of bleak humor and pure domestic heartbreak. It is a deep dive into kids parenting their parents, showing what happens when duty violently crashes into grudges. Do not expect any big, tearful makeup scenes here. All the laughs and tears stem from awkward little moments. It is about an old man losing his grip, an annoyed girl, and a guy completely failing to step up. The character uses his massive brain as a shield to keep people away. Being a college academic lets him hide safely behind sarcasm and smart-sounding concepts. He tries to be a good son while absolutely hating the hassle. The actor nails that bitter ego, perfectly capturing a guy who never figured out how to look out for anyone except himself. You feel his annoyance simmering right below the surface. The dude wishes he was miles away, treating every chat with his sibling like a stressful hostage standoff. Whenever he deals with his dad, the vibe is gorgeous yet freezing. He says so much just through vocal shifts and keeping his physical distance. He actively isolates himself, standing back in shots with posture, screaming he is ready to bolt out the door. Yet, the star never plays him as a sad victim destroyed by bad luck. Instead, we watch him slowly figure out how pathetic he actually is, bombing his family test and stubbornly refusing to grow. When the credits roll, he has not improved one bit. He just accepts that he is a flawed jerk. This is a masterclass in playing an emotionally stuck guy with deadpan accuracy, completely unapologetic. A solo trip for just the pair of us sounds right. What kind of reaction are you honestly expecting from me right now? Another brilliant piece tracks a stressed stage boss in upstate New York, watching his marriage crumble while his body weirdly falls apart. His eccentric painter spouse suddenly bails for overseas, taking their little girl along. Terrified of dying and paranoid that he has never achieved anything real in his career, the guy scores a massive genius grant and blows it on a wildly crazy stage idea, rebuilding a massive chunk of Manhattan inside a giant storage building. Entire decades slip by in a flash. The boundaries between his play and actual life get totally wiped out. He hires performers to act like him and his ex, trying to turn his miserable existence into art. The movie swings wildly between hallucinations and the real world, showing bodies breaking down until viewers, just like the main guy, completely lose track of what is actually real anymore. The lead character is so obsessed with leaving a legacy that he accidentally unplugs himself from living. He comes off as both a big shot and a total loser, confusing blind drive with actual talent. The demanding script requires a performer bold enough to look completely lost and lean into unresolved feelings. Our star leans into that shaky vibe 100%. The way he physically morphs as the guy's health tanks is just mind-blowing. As makeup ages him, the actor switches up his walk, his slouch, and even his breathing. He shrinks physically, yet keeps that intense, brainy stubbornness alive. It is a deeply internal acting clinic. Stuck inside his own brain, the director tries to build a custom universe just to stop himself from fading into total obscurity. In one moment, he watches a cast member act out his memories and realizes she captured a magic he absolutely lacks. The reaction shot is a devastatingly quiet realization that he is basically a hack. That tiny look sums up the whole role, showing a dude hitting a creative wall and picking fantasy over hard truths. By the final scenes, he is staging his own passing, desperately trying to write a neat ending. Instead of playing him crazy, the actor frames it as the natural crash of a tortured artist, someone who cannot handle reality and turns his craft into a slow suicide. This flick will totally scramble your brain. Philly cops are here, representing the state of Pennsylvania. Where is your basic sense of decency? Can you stick your hands up? What part of the galaxy are you even broadcasting from right now? Now, let's talk about that slick cult leader who started a spooky movement based on shady self-help tricks and weird hypnosis sessions. Set right after World War II, the story kicks off when a scarred, booze-loving sailor sneaks onto the leader's boat, sparking a wildly weird friendship. The guru gets obsessed with fixing the broken drifter using his bizarre cult tactics. As things get intense, you realize these two messed up dudes desperately rely on each other in ways they cannot explain. The leader treats the sailor like a shiny experiment to prove his methods actually work. Meanwhile, the lost vet views the boss as a strict dad who provides much-needed rules. When the drifter finally bails, the Grandmaster is totally crushed, singing a sad song as his favorite pupil hits the road forever. This is arguably the director's most puzzling project, exploring toxic control and belief, filmed on glorious 70mm to catch every facial tic. The portrayal is a master-level lesson in faking swagger when you are secretly terrified inside. The guy struts around calling himself a brilliant author, scientist, and philosopher, but the performance brilliantly lets us peek behind the curtain to see the cracks in his act. He speaks with booming authority, but his voice shakes whenever someone questions his rules. His grand ideas make zero sense. When pushed back, he loses it, showing his inner monster. The actor never plays him as a basic scammer. There is a solid chance the guy actually buys into his own hype. Just like actual cult leaders, his hunger for spiritual truth and urge to control blur completely together. The brilliance here lies entirely in the mystery. Is he running a massive scam, or buying his own hype? Could he truly be brainwashed by the fake theories he preaches? The actor implies a complex mix of both extremes, all while projecting an aura of terrifying dominance. The man simply takes over any room, demanding focus through pure attitude. Yet, we occasionally catch glimpses of his unshakable confidence falling apart. Whenever his protege pushes back, or his bizarre techniques flop and power slips, raw terror flashes across his face. That final interaction between them strips away all his remaining defenses. All that fake bravado vanishes, leaving only profound grief behind. The brilliant acting reveals a deeply confused soul hiding behind a guru persona, desperately hunting for purpose by forcing his beliefs onto vulnerable people. We see a flawed leader projecting fake power. The actor's incredible skill turns this collapse into a destined tragedy. This role perfectly captures a terrifying reality about power. The biggest threats aren't obvious liars, but individuals who fully swallow their own twisted fantasies. They might look right at us, but we are completely off the books. The movie takes place in Hamburg right after 9/11, an era of intense paranoia for German spies. We follow a seasoned German spy running a completely secret anti-terror squad that functions way outside normal government boundaries. The second a Chechen refugee shows up in town, this veteran agent spots a golden chance to infiltrate a massive dark money ring. Things evolve into a tense, agonizingly slow game of cat and mouse. The lead spy ruthlessly treats this vulnerable kid as a pawn to capture bigger targets. Disguised as a typical spy flick, the story highlights a man's unhealthy fixation on the mission and his readiness to destroy innocent lives for safety. The sting works on paper, yet feels like a devastating ethical disaster. The actor gives us a spy completely drained by years in the shadows. This guy basically radiates pure fatigue from head to toe. Sporting an aged look, he walks with a noticeable slouch, seemingly crushed by a lifetime of dirty secrets. It is a masterful display of a profoundly tired soul justifying terrible deeds. Any trace of hope is gone, replaced entirely by cold rules and the twisted joy of pulling off a sting. This agent commits unspeakable acts while whispering excuses to himself. The legendary actor nails this vibe by using a deadpan voice and staying completely detached. His character talks like a robot, ensuring personal feelings never taint the mission. Even as his human pawn begs for mercy, the icy operative barely blinks. He coldly registers the desperate plea and just keeps pushing his dark agenda forward. This stunning performance proves how massive organizations slowly trick people into thinking evil acts are normal. However, this spy isn't some comic book villain. He is just a loyal gear in the system who forgot where the job ends and his humanity begins. We watch a deeply broken person who crossed the line so many times he doesn't even notice boundaries anymore. Arguing that this iconic star possessed too much talent comes down to one bizarre truth. The man stubbornly refused to rely on a trademark acting style. Whether playing a numb self-eraser, a flamboyant writer, or a burnt-out secret agent, you could never find a simple trope to hold onto. Every single project felt like a massive left turn, featuring unique feelings and entirely foreign ethical boundaries. While other A-list legends built careers by perfecting a signature swagger, this guy hated doing the same thing twice. Stardom was never the goal, because his ultimate dream was to simply vanish. That wild unpredictability meant you could barely grasp his genius until the final credits rolled. Watching his movies proves he treated every single fictional life as a brand new universe. Because he never felt tied to his past successes, he could flawlessly bounce from a fake messiah to a dying nurse. He poured his soul into a depressed computer guy just like a suspicious agent. The only consistent thread in his resume was his total dedication to whoever he pretended to be that day. That unbelievable commitment is exactly why digging into his classic movies feels so rewarding today. He hated taking the lazy route, constantly challenging both his own limits and the viewers. We really lost an absolute titan of the silver screen. I genuinely hope taking this trip down memory lane was a blast. Fingers crossed I inspired a few folks to check out those hidden gems they skipped over the years. I really appreciate you tuning in today, my friends.